We live in an age where everything is shown. Every meal, every trip, every carefully rehearsed smile in front of the mirror finds its way into a story or a post. People share without thinking, expose without reflection, and record without pause. And we rarely question it anymore, because somewhere along the way we started believing that if it isn't shared, it almost doesn't exist. It's the new rule of modern existence. Visibility equals validation. But beneath the flood of images and updates, there's a quiet minority. People who've chosen a different path. They don't post. They don't announce. They don't need to convert every heartbeat into content. They've stepped away from the performance, not because they reject technology, but because they've understood something deeper. That silence in a world of noise is power. We often mistake absence for weakness, but maybe absence is wisdom. Maybe the ones who stay silent aren't hiding, they're protecting. Protecting their identity, their peace, and the sacredness of moments that don't need to be witnessed to be real. You might wonder, why would anyone choose to stay in the shadows when the spotlight seems to promise relevance, opportunity, even love? The answer is both psychological and spiritual. Constant exposure demands a price most people don't notice they're paying, until it's too late. Every photo, every caption, every shared moment is a small piece of yourself you surrender to the public. And those who refuse to post have learned the value of keeping themselves whole. They've realized that not everything beautiful must be displayed, that some joys lose their magic the moment they're converted into content. What remains unseen, unshared, often carries the deepest meaning. It's a radical idea in a time where everyone fights to be seen. But those who resist exposure have already grasped the secret others overlook. That when everyone runs toward visibility, the one who stays behind isn't falling behind. They're choosing freedom. Their identity doesn't depend on applause. Their worth isn't measured in likes. Their life doesn't need proof to be real. As Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "Invisible threads are the strongest ties." Perhaps those invisible ties, the ones that bind us quietly to our own truth, matter far more than the visible strings of approval that social media offers. And so, we begin with a paradox. In a world obsessed with being seen, maybe the truest form of strength is to be unseen. The digital world rewards exposure. The more you show, the more you seem to exist. We've been conditioned to believe that visibility equals influence, and influence equals importance. But the reality is far more fragile. Visibility creates illusion, an illusion of intimacy, of success, of control. When you share constantly, your life becomes a glass house. People peer inside, comment, compare, and sometimes even claim ownership over what you display. The irony is painful. In trying to control how others see you, you lose control of yourself. Meanwhile, those who remain silent, those who post rarely or not at all, become enigmas. Mystery, in a culture of transparency, becomes rare. And what's rare gains value. The less you reveal, the more people want to know. The more you speak, the easier it is for your voice to blend into the noise. The few who choose silence understand the psychology of scarcity. They know that in a world of endless self-disclosure, the rarest commodity is restraint. A single word, a single photo, a single appearance, these things carry weight only when they are not drowned in excess. When someone constantly posts, their image becomes predictable. Their life turns into a loop of rehearsed authenticity. But those who don't post, who preserve their privacy, build anticipation. Their absence creates curiosity, and curiosity, unlike attention, cannot be manufactured. The ones who live outside the feed understand something crucial, that the abundance of images has not made us more connected, it has made us more indifferent. We scroll past moments that once would have moved us deeply. Every joy looks the same, every achievement becomes content, every pain becomes performance. And yet, the quiet ones resist. They reclaim the power of rarity. They show less to mean more. They know that mystery draws respect, not because it hides truth, but because it honors it. As Lao Tzu once wrote, "He who knows does not speak. He who speaks does not know." Those who choose not to expose everything are not withholding. They're preserving something sacred. The difference between life and display between being and appearing. The illusion of visibility may grant a moment of fame, but the reward of silence is lasting peace. Every notification lights up the brain like a spark. Every like, every comment, every new follower releases a drop of dopamine, a fleeting pleasure that vanishes almost as soon as it arrives. It's a system designed for dependence, not fulfillment. We begin to measure our lives by reactions instead of experiences. We stop living for ourselves and start living for the gaze of others. What you eat, where you travel, how you pose, it all becomes part of the performance. You're no longer living. You're curating an image of a life you hope others will admire. But here's the quiet rebellion. Those who don't post free themselves from that addiction. They eat without photographing, travel without announcing, laugh without proving it. They rediscover what it means to be fully present, to live without witnesses. And this absence of validation doesn't make them invisible, it makes them real. Because when you detach from constant approval, you return to something fundamental. The inner sense of enough. Enough without applause. Enough without proof. Enough without being seen. That's why people who choose silence often exude confidence that feels unshakable. Their worth isn't outsourced to a crowd. It's self-sustained. They know that the truest moments of life, the real tears, the quiet joys, the raw uncertainties, don't belong to the feed. They belong to the soul. Meanwhile, the constant performers grow restless. Their happiness lasts only as long as their audience claps. But what happens when the applause stops? Who are you when no one is watching? That's the question that separates peace from performance. Soren Kierkegaard once wrote, "The crowd is untruth." He meant that in the pursuit of public validation, we often abandon what's true within us. And those who stay silent, who resist the pull of the crowd, remain grounded in something more stable, their own truth. In the end, silence isn't just the absence of speech. It's the presence of self. To refuse exposure today is to rebel. The world demands your participation, your face, your stories, your constant display. And when you say no, you disrupt the system. You become invisible to consumption, untouchable by metrics, free from the algorithm's grip. Invisibility has become the new luxury, the ability to live without proving, to enjoy without documenting, to feel without broadcasting. Those who master it reclaim a kind of control most people have lost, control over their own narrative. Not posting is not passivity, it's power. It's the decision to define your existence by your own terms, not by digital applause. Those who choose silence know that privacy is the ultimate form of possession. When you keep your moments to yourself, they become entirely yours, uncorrupted, unmeasured, unjudged. In relationships too, this quiet strength creates something beautiful. When your life isn't displayed for all to see, the people who want to know you must earn that right. They must talk to you, listen to you, and connect with you beyond the screen. The result? Fewer relationships, but deeper ones. When you don't post, you separate genuine connection from curiosity. You force others to engage with you for who you are, not for what you show. And in that exchange, trust becomes real again. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." The same applies to authenticity. You don't have to prove you're real, just live it. Those who don't post live beyond the lens. They move through the world without the weight of performance. And that's where true authenticity is born. In the silence of non-exposure lies a fortress, an invisible one, but indestructible nonetheless. There's a moment, perhaps late at night, when the phone screen goes dark. No notifications, no new stories, no faces asking to be seen. Just silence. And in that silence, something extraordinary happens. You return to yourself. This is the essence of the freedom that those who don't post experience every day. They live without needing an audience. Their happiness doesn't depend on digital proof. They exist fully in their moments, not frozen for others to consume. They live for memory, not photography, for presence, not display. And that difference between living and proving changes everything. Because memory is alive. It carries sound, scent, texture, and emotion. A social media post carries only pixels and filters. Those who don't post understand that what stays within you lasts longer than anything you upload. Not posting also protects what you love. Your family, your peace, your private joy, all shielded from the chaos of judgment and comparison. You decide who deserves access to your reality. That ability to draw boundaries isn't isolation. It's self-respect. And perhaps, in this age of constant visibility, those who disappear are not escaping life, they're preserving it. As Carl Jung wrote, who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. Those who don't post are awake. Awake to their experiences, awake to their emotions, awake to the quiet truth that life is not a performance. It's a presence. So, if tomorrow the digital world vanished, no feeds, no likes, no stories, would you still live with the same intensity? Would your moments still matter if no one could see them? For those who've learned to live without witnesses, the answer is yes. Because their life has always been theirs, unrecorded yet deeply real. In the end, not posting is not disappearance, it's liberation. The courage to live without applause, to exist beyond attention, to find meaning not in being seen but in simply being. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest revolution of our time will not be in showing more, but in finally learning to show less. There's a strange paradox in our time. We know more about others than ever before, yet we understand them less. We can scroll endlessly through someone's life, see their meals, their trips, their smiles, and still know nothing about who they truly are. Because what we see is not the person, it's the performance. And somewhere in that illusion, the real self quietly fades. To be unseen, then, is not to vanish, it's to reclaim depth in an age of surfaces. It's the choice to be instead of to appear, to live instead of to display. The art of being unseen is not about hiding from the world. It's about returning to authenticity. It's not about isolation, it's about integration. Because when you stop scattering fragments of yourself into the digital void, you begin to collect them again. You become whole. The unseen person lives with a different rhythm. They're not chasing applause. They're listening to silence. They're not curating their experiences. They're inhabiting them. When they travel, it's not for a photo, it's for perspective. When they laugh, it's not for likes. It's because joy found them in the quietest of moments. And what's remarkable is how this quiet way of living changes the texture of existence itself. Time slows down, conversations deepen, attention sharpens. Without the constant background noise of performance, life regains its weight. You begin to notice the sound of rain again, the warmth in a friend's eyes, the stillness that lives between words. This isn't nostalgia, it's awakening. The art of being unseen is also the art of being free. Because the moment you stop needing to be observed, you stop being controlled. Every algorithm, every metric, every cycle of comparison loses its grip. The world will try to convince you that invisibility means irrelevance. But the opposite is true. When you're no longer trying to be seen, you can finally see. And what you see is profound. You begin to notice the subtle difference between presence and presentation. You start to realize how often we mistake attention for affection, engagement for connection, followers for friends. The unseen individual steps out of that illusion, not with arrogance, but with peace. Their silence becomes a kind of language, an eloquent refusal to reduce life to content. In that silence, they build something the digital world cannot replicate. Mystery. Not the kind born of secrecy, but the kind born of depth. And mystery, in its purest form, is magnetic. It draws others in not through noise, but through gravity. Plato once wrote, "The wise man will want to be ever with him who is better than himself." The unseen person embodies that wisdom. They seek depth, not display, substance, not spectacle. They choose to surround themselves not with crowds, but with souls that see beyond the surface. To be unseen is to have the courage to live a life that is yours alone, to let moments remain unshared, to keep certain joys sacred, to let mystery return to human existence. Because when everything is visible, nothing is valued. When everything is said, nothing is remembered. So perhaps the final act of self-respect in this era of endless exhibition is the act of silence. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of meaning. The silence that doesn't need to shout to be heard. Maybe that's the true evolution of our time. Not in the next app, not in the next update, but in the quiet revolution of those who choose not to play the game at all. Those who live fully, deeply, invisibly. Because in the end, it's not about who saw you. It's about what you saw when no one was looking. And maybe, just maybe, that's what it means to truly live. At the end of all noise, there is always silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence that waits for us. The silence that has been calling from the beginning. When you finally stop performing, stop sharing, stop proving, what's left is not absence. It's presence. Pure, unfiltered, undeniable presence. This is the return to the self. It's where all journeys of exposure eventually lead, whether we realize it or not. After you've shown everything, shared everything, told every story, there comes a moment when you look inward and ask, what remains when I stop being seen? And in that moment, something ancient awakens. It's the realization that your worth was never meant to be public property. That the truest version of you exists in the spaces no one can photograph. The quiet morning before you check your phone. The walk where your thoughts drift without audience. The night when your heart aches and no one knows. The return to the self is not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself with sound or spectacle. It arrives like breath, slow, steady, necessary. Those who live quietly have already begun this return. They've stopped chasing the illusion that their life must be documented to be real. They've discovered that the most sacred moments are the ones that can never be captured. They understand that privacy is not loneliness, it's ownership. And ownership of oneself is the foundation of peace. Because when you stop giving yourself away in fragments, you begin to feel whole again. Every unposted moment, every unseen day, every private thought adds up to something immeasurable. A life that belongs entirely to you. In that wholeness, time begins to flow differently. You stop rushing to keep up with others, because you realize there is no feed in real life. There are only seasons, growth, loss, renewal, stillness. You stop performing happiness and start cultivating peace. And in that peace, you find clarity. You begin to see how the world has mistaken exposure for connection, visibility for meaning, speed for progress. You see how people exhaust themselves trying to be seen, while the ones who stay silent remain grounded, steady, untouchable. Those who don't post are not disconnected. They are simply connected to something deeper, the rhythm of their own existence. They've remembered how to listen to themselves without interference, how to feel without broadcasting, how to think without reacting. It's a radical simplicity, and it's profoundly human. For centuries, mystics, poets, and philosophers have spoken of this return, the moment when we stop looking outward for meaning and begin the inward journey home. The ancient Stoics called it ataraxia, the calm that comes from not depending on external things. Buddhists call it nirvana, freedom from craving and noise. In modern words, we might just call it peace. And maybe this is what those who stay silent already know. That peace isn't found by adding more, but by needing less. As Rumi wrote, there is a voice that doesn't use words. Listen. Those who have chosen not to post have learned to listen to that voice. They've realized that the truest expression of a life well lived might not be a photograph or a caption. It might simply be the quiet knowledge that you were fully there for it. The return to the self isn't the end of the story. It's the rediscovery of authorship. It's the moment you pick up the pen and realize the story of your life never needed an audience. It just needed your attention. In that realization, the need to be seen dissolves. The pressure to perform fades. And what remains is simple, powerful, and beautifully human. The ability to exist in your own truth without the world's permission. Because in the end, visibility fades. Algorithms change. Audiences move on. But the self, the quiet, watching self, remains. And when you finally return to it, you discover that what you were searching for all along was never out there in the glare of attention. It was always here in the stillness. The journey ends not with a post, but with a breath. Not with applause, but with peace. Not with being seen, but with finally seeing yourself.